Okay, so today I wanted to talk about why we live in a dystopian society and humanity is regressing. Now, I think when you look at the world today, regardless of what country you live in, right, you can see that nothing is really improving and the world and society and the governments are getting exponentially worse year by year by year. And so, I mean, we can take a look at this from all different angles and perspectives. Whether you look at the government surveillance getting worse, whether you look at a lot of agendas that are going on. I'm not going to say certain words here on YouTube, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Whether you look at that's the government, right? But we can also look at society, how people are just getting more and more stupid as the years go by, more and more aggressive, more and more negative, baseline, ideologically possessed, politically possessed, whatever, religiously possessed even. And the reason I'm saying this is because it's going to be a very difficult time over the next couple of decades to just exist, right? And there we can also go on to the economy, right? I mean, people are struggling to afford even basic things in this damn economy, right? So you have these three factors, right? A more aggressive and dumbed down and um, black and white population, and what I mean by that is a population that can't really see nuance, that isn't really interested in being educated or in educating themselves, rather, sorry, um, or in thinking deeper about the world that they live in or in their own situations. You have economic difficulties, right? Economic hardships, rising fanaticism. Um, just I mean, the governments are getting more and more, well, less and less, sorry, tolerant. A lot of our freedoms are going downhill. Like, for instance, in the UK, we're seeing this digital ID stuff, online safety bills, all of this kind of, stuff that shows that the government is clearly going against the people openly now. And it's going to be a very difficult time over the next couple of decades to survive. And whereas before, when you had certain issues going on, at least the public were educated and they were willing to improve society and were willing to stand up against corrupt authority and to make things better for themselves and for their children or their descendants or whatever. But now what we're seeing is just the opposite. The elites now have a control over the people, and people themselves are just getting more and more possessed. If you know what I'm trying to say. So it's a tough time to be alive. And I just feel bad for any kids that are going to go through this because there's no future in this world, right? And then again, I go back to the other massive issues that are hitting us and are going to hit us very soon. I'm going to start from the top to the bottom, right? So water scarcity is going to hit us. I've made a video about water scarcity. If you guys want, I can leave it in the description. AI and the coming singularity that's coming. Um, Global warming, although that's not as big of an issue as these other ones. Um, Antibiotic resistance, yes, that is massively just going to hit us. Um, I mean, these massive issues are going to require the government to take more and more civil liberties, right? I'm pretty sure that's correct, right? Um, if you disagree, write why in the comments. But I mean, this is just going to add on to the problem. I think we can all agree to that. And I just, as I said, I feel very bad for children being born in this world today and growing up in this world today because they just won't really, they just won't really have the chance to live normal lives, economically, politically, socially. I mean, societies, like even kids nowadays are just getting more and more evil. There's a ton of psychopaths and narcissists, sociopaths, as I said as well. The fact that I'm even having to talk about these issues, and as often as I am having to talk about them, just shows you that this is a massive, massive problem um, that needs to be sorted out. Because, I mean, it's not going to be, but it needs to be sorted out, especially for those who are planning to have children. You need to be taking like an active interest, and putting in an active effort to trying to reverse this kind of stuff wherever you can, because your children are what you don't fight up against. I remember Animosity said this. If you guys know his channel, great channel, even though I don't agree with everything he says, but whatever. He said what you don't fight against today is going to be what your children are going to have to face in the future. And it's very true. If you're not taking an active effort and interest to improve the state of the world, you'll know better than you'll truly know better than those who don't do anything. Those who are helping to enforce these systems. And that's the problem. That's the challenge. So, yeah, I mean, all of these issues are really going to make life way more hard than it is now. And yeah, I mean, it sucks. It sucks, right? I really don't want to be talking about this, but it has to be said, right? And so when you add up all these factors, what kind of future are you realistically going to have? Do you really think there's even a potential for a good future? Because remember, the elites and the people, the powers that be, don't care about the world being saved or improved. They care about it being ran. And I think that just kind of shows you that even if you do try to improve the world, right, then you'll just be there's nothing you can do, right, realistically speaking. And yeah, I'm probably just going to leave it there. But sorry about this video, guys, but it just has to be said, because a lot of people just don't want to hear these kinds of topics, and this message needs to be gotten out there. We are entering into a dystopian society. Society is regressing. Humanity is regressing. In all demographics, in all age groups, things are getting much worse, and I'm pretty sure in all countries. And if the Western countries are doing this, right, which are meant to be the most advanced, most wealthy, most economically prosperous, that just shows you something about the state of the rest of the world. And all Western governments are doing these things, right? It's not just the UK; it's the EU has similar rules. Canada, America's somewhat of an exception, but even then they've because they have the First Amendment, but even then a lot of those things are going on there, or are starting to be pushed through there, right? But everywhere in the West, these things are going on. So yeah, it sucks. It sucks. So yeah, what can I really say about this? All I can say is, try and take care of your mental health. Try and put yourself in the best position possible as things get worse. I do wish you guys all the best, of course, especially my long-time subs, because this is going to be a very rough time, a rough period to survive in. And yeah, anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening.